What's up, Pathways Church? I'm Nathan Purifoy, your worship pastor. Welcome to today's Daily Dose. This is Friday, the last Daily Dose of the week, and I want to encourage you guys to be here Sunday morning, and I hope to see you on Sunday morning. Feel free to come up, interrupt me if I'm talking to somebody. If I'm walking around the lobby, come say hey to me. I'd love to talk to you. But before we're done with this Daily Dose this week, I want to share with you one more story about somebody with giant faith. We're going to talk about a man named Joseph. When Joseph was young, his brothers sold him into Egypt as a slave. Then he has this crazy long set of circumstances. One thing happens, leading to another, and he ends up being in prison in Egypt. Now, while he's in prison in Egypt, he interprets a couple people's dreams, and he kind of starts to build a name for himself as a person who interprets dreams. So now Pharaoh needs someone to interpret a dream for him. So Joseph does. He interprets the dream for Pharaoh. He tells Pharaoh, based on these dreams you're having, there's going to be 7 years of plenty. Your cattle are going to be doing great. Your flour, your wheat's going to be doing great. All your livestock are going to thrive. All of your crops are going to thrive for 7 years. And then it's going to be followed by 7 years of famine. The Pharaoh believes him. He realizes this is a wise interpretation of his dream and that God has sent this man to tell me what this dream meant. And now he's got a chance to prepare for the drought. So he actually elevates Joseph out of prison and into his court. He works right beside Pharaoh, hand in hand with him, to make sure that they're prepared for this famine that's coming. I'll tell you what happened is Joseph spoke authority, even though he was in a place of inferiority. I know that's a hard sentence to put together. But he spoke from authority, knowing what God had said to him. We're going to start Genesis 41, verse 46. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of the Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from Pharaoh's presence and traveled throughout Egypt during the 7 years of abundance that the land produced plentifully. Joseph collected all the food produced in those 7 years of abundance in Egypt and stored it in the cities. In each city, he put the food grown in the fields surrounding it. And so much so that he stored up huge quantities of grain that they couldn't even keep measure of how much they had. Now, because of Joseph's giant faith, he went around and he was obedient. He did what he knew God wanted him to do. He was wise with the resources he had been given, and he was bold with the opportunity to share God's word. Now, he's taking care of all the food and all the crops that the land is producing, so getting ready for these 7 years of famine. And in verse 56, it says, when the famine had spread over the whole country, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grains to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout Egypt. And all the world came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph, because the famine was severe everywhere. Because Joseph listened to God, and because Joseph went out on faith to share God's word, to give God's decree and to listen to what God had and to be obedient to what God had for him in his life, Joseph was able to be at the helm when the entire world needed provision. Joseph was able to be in a place to help tons and tons of people, to help everybody, to help an entire nation, all the surrounding nations around, even his own family later on we find out, because Joseph went out on big faith. I've been an insecure person for most of my life, and when given an opportunity to speak out of a place of inferiority where I feel like I'm in a lower position than somebody else, I feel like I'm not qualified, I'm not deserving, it's really hard for me to speak with the boldness and authority that I know God has for me. But I need to get better at that. And I want to suggest that you guys work on that. Work on being bold, speaking God's word, speaking God's truth, sharing God's love, following God's direction, even when it's difficult, even when you don't feel good enough, even when you don't feel qualified. No matter what, I want to encourage you guys to have big faith. We'll see you guys Sunday morning.